I just heard Marc Lamont Hill give one of the most prophetic, fiery sermons that I've heard in recent memory. Because why y'all make him mad like that?
Religious folk, you saying you're Christians. Cool. But what kind of Christians you gonna be? You gonna be prophetic Christians or Creflo Christians? Do you want prosperities of freedom or do you want prosperities of wealth?
If I want to believe God for a $65 million plane, you cannot stop me. You cannot stop me from dreaming.
Do you want to talk about how much money you got or how much money your pastor got, what size his jet is, how big his Instagram followers are? Are you going to be following the revolutionary example of a Palestinian Jew named Jesus that freed the captives, that healed the brokenhearted, that preached good news to the poor, that overturned the tables in the temple, that said that you'll measure your faith is how you treat your brother?
Yes, sir.
Who do y'all want to be?
I think sermons like these are great examples of what the prophetic tradition looks like in the Black church. It's possible. I feel like as of late, being prophetic is about keeping things the status quo and about saying vociferously that you don't want things to change and how things have gone so far and we've regressed as a society. But like Marc Lamont Hill alluded to, we can and it's our responsibility to make change. He held the church to account.
Last week, there was a protest in the Great Mother Emanuel AME Church in South Carolina. A beautiful church, a historic church, a church birthed out of struggle, birthed out of the struggle of the African Methodist Episcopal tradition, which is built on saying black folk have a right to preach to the word of God. Black folk have a right to full humanity and full participation. Don't tell me you love God and you obey the commandments of God and the word of Jesus and tell me that black folk ain't got the same rights. So the AME Church is a church of struggle. And it's also a church of tragedy. We know that Dylan Roof went into that church and killed 9 beloved saints as they were praying. So I was a bit struck last week when I saw that they opened the pulpit up to Genocide Joe. Y'all can get mad, I don't care. And people, as he began to give his campaign speech, some protesters stood up and said, "Stop the blood in Palestine."
Yeah.
They said, if you're outraged by the blood of Selma and you're outraged by the blood that was spilled in this very church, then how about calling for a ceasefire in Palestine since you've given them the weapons, you giving them the support, you giving them the money? Joe, why don't you do something about it?
Without light, there's no path from this darkness.
If you really care about the lives lost here, then you should honor the lives lost and call for a ceasefire in Palestine. Ceasefire now!
They marched and stood up and got kicked out of the church, and people said, we're outraged. You know, I was outraged too.
Yes, sir.
How dare you use this sacred space? How dare you use this beloved pulpit? How dare you use this sacred tradition? How dare you use the words of Jesus, who overturned the tables in the temple, who was committed to speaking out against injustice? How dare you use this space as a shield for imperial war? How dare you use this space as a shield for violence? How dare you use this space as a shield for genocide?
Go ahead, Mark. Go ahead.
The moral atrocity that took place wasn't some disruptive protesters. It was the fact that you allowed the leader of the most violent and bloody empire in modern history to stand in this place and represent a tradition that he ain't got nothing to do with. How dare you?
And the thing about Joe Biden visiting Emanuel AME that stood out to me, that bothered me a lot, is that when Joe Biden gets called out for mourning the lives of those lost in the AME Emanuel shooting done by Dylan Roof, but not doing everything in his power to stop the genocide that is happening in Gaza, and in fact funding and fueling that genocide in Gaza, the people in the church started to advocate for Joe. The people in the church started to shout 4 more years of genocide, 4 more years of funding a settler colonial project that is the nation state of Israel. And And that's where the black church is today, often misguided, often woefully uninformed about the things that are happening in the world around them.
Thank you.
They don't realize that. You're a good man.
Well, thanks.
He even called out the patriarchy and pointed out the rightful fact that we as men have no right to claim that we've done this thing the right way. Because look at the state of the world. Look at the way we live and tell me things can't be better.
One of the great lies of history is that history is advanced by singular people, and really singular, heterosexual, able-bodied men. But for every single person like a King or a Malcolm or an Ella or a Fannie Lou, there are tens of thousands of people standing behind them. History is not advanced by single people. And for a long time, the people who have stood in the back have been women. So part of what we got to do in this tradition is change some of the things of the past and say, we no longer going to have a sister with a PhD in the back and the brother not making no sense in the front. We got to move the sisters to the front. We got to let the women lead. We got to let our queer folk lead. We got to let our trans folk lead, because we ain't got it right. Men, we ain't got no way to say we done did this thing right.
This is a great message, and I want to encourage you to watch the full thing. We have to release the idea that things have to be the way they are, because we are the ones who have the power and agency to change things. No more waiting on a miracle when the miracle is you and your passion and your commitment to your community.
We must first imagine the world that is not yet. The great Howard Thurman, the theologian and mystic, talked about the idea that we don't have to be prisoners of the event. Thurman said, never reduce our aspirations or our dreams to the level of that which is our immediate experience. For Thurman, as a Christian, he was saying that the story of the crucifixion doesn't tell the whole story of our lives, of our faith, or of human possibility. Because where there is a crucifixion, for Thurman, there was a resurrection. He said, just as Jesus was not prisoner of the events of the cross, we do not have to be prisoner of the events of our lives. We can imagine a new heaven and a new earth, a new world, a new possibility. We ain't got to be prisoner to drugs. We ain't got to be prisoner to mass incarceration. We ain't got to be prisoner to rape culture. We ain't got to be prisoner to imperial wars. We ain't got to be prisoner to patriarchy. We can imagine something else, because on the third day, we gonna rise up. On the third day, we gonna organize. On the third day, we gonna believe in something different. On the third day, we ain't talking prison, we talking abolition. On the third day, we ain't talking Me Too, we saying end patriarchy. On the third day, we ain't talking two-state solutions, we saying we gonna free Palestine. On the third day, we ain't trying to be polite with white folk, we trying to dismantle white supremacy. On the third day, we gonna do something different.
This was powerful. From now on, that's how you preach. I hope everybody took notes. From now on, that's how you preach. Love and liberation to you all. And as always, like and follow for more content.